that I was not hungry, I refused the food. Not that I was not sleepy, I kept awake. My ears keep hearing the cry of an infant. For months in solitary, it was a source of anxiety. For hours to this moment, it is endless excitement. Then came the news of the arrival of my little one. I am the father, robbed of my freedom, whose world is shrunk into a dark little dungeon. My child, just born into a world yet unfree.
Francis Khoo, whose story you'll hear in a moment, was reading that poem by Syed Zahari, a Singapore poet who spent the last 15 years in jail. The daughter about whom it's written is now nearly grown up, and it's the sort of poem which inspires other opponents of the present Singapore government. Francis is a lawyer by training, but others have run foul of the government as well. In December 1976, a Singapore journalist filing for his newspaper, the London Financial Times, began his piece with these words. In Southeast Asia, Singapore is the cleanest and greenest city where everything works. There are almost no beggars in the city, no strikes, and unemployment is well within manageable limits. Almost every Singaporean has a roof over his head as a result of a housing program for which the government has footed half the bill. Nothing much to complain of there. Yet he also wrote about the government's intolerance of criticism, control of the press, and student and worker unrest. 6 weeks later, the journalist was arrested on charges of alleged pro-communist activities, charges to which he later confessed in a prepared statement broadcast on prime time on government-run television. Many prominent citizens associated with criticism of the government have suffered a similar fate. At present, there are 61 detainees without trial in Singapore, and the total is higher if you include those arrested for preliminary questioning before being detained or released. 3 of the detainees have been inside since February 1963. What's extraordinary about the government's intolerance of criticism is that it contrasts with a remarkable economic and political record. On 4 occasions in the last 2 decades, and Lee Kuan Yew has been in power for 19 of those years, Singapore's economic collapse has been freely forecast. In fact, Singapore has ridden all the crises. And in the last 3 elections, Lee Kuan Yew's People's Action Party has won all the seats in Parliament, though the opposition has taken up to 1/3 of the votes cast. So, on the face of it, the government, acknowledged to be the least corrupt in the entire region, perhaps in the whole of Asia, should have little to fear from its critics. Yet it is, at the least, a bossy government. Bossy about things like orderly queuing, careful driving, littering, long hair, and the regulation of marriage, sterilization, and restrictions on union rights. As the jailed journalist wrote, Singapore is a society where people are told what to do. Those who do well are rewarded. But those who ask why are first of all denied the carrot, and then, if they persist, given the stick. What worries many people, friends and enemies of Lee Kuan Yew alike, is that his government is resorting with increasing frequency to the stick, and that stick is falling on the backs of people such as Francis Khoo,